And welcome to everybody to this webinar today, where we're going to review everything that it takes to transition over from EMP to the new CrossLink Tax Tech online portal. What exactly are we going to cover today? Well, everything essentially that you need to do to get ready for this upcoming season through this online portal. That means, obviously, how to log in to this website. We're going to review all those steps. Then after that, once you're logged in to the online portal, we're going to take a look at some things that you need to do in order to use and download the software. First one being completing some required agreements. We'll see what that's all about and explain what these agreements mean, what they're covering. After that, we'll review your user IDs. These user IDs are essentially numbers that identify your tax office with CrossLink Tax Tech, numbers that are entered into the software. I'm sure some of you are familiar with these numbers already, these user IDs that are in the program, but we'll see where you can manage them and see them when you're on the online portal. After that, we're going to take a look at bank enrollment or EFIN validation, whether you want to enroll with the bank to provide bank products, or if you're not interested in providing bank products, there's still an EFIN validation process that has to happen on the portal. So we're going to take a look at either of those options. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with what to expect next. Just some things to keep in mind for the season as we get closer and closer to it. All right. So with that said, let's dive in straight into logging into the portal. Before we log into the portal, though, some quick notes. First of all, EMP, the myempportal.website, that website right now is currently unavailable. If you were to log or try to log in, you'll see a sign similar to the one that we have on screen here saying it's unavailable. So please keep that in mind. If you were using EMP portal before, it's not available. Instead, what we're doing is we're going to crosslinktaxtech.com. So if you're, placing these websites on your bookmarks or important on your favorites, this is the one that you want to register into your bookmarks moving forward. And then finally, as far as logging in to the portal, logging into this CrossLink Tax website, one of the first things you'll need to use is your username, what we call the account code typically. And this piece of information, this account code, you typically receive it via email. As a matter of fact, I believe all of you should have received it at this point, this email from your CrossLink Tax Tech account manager. That includes your account code, usually a combination of your last and first name, and also a link to log in to this website, to log into CrossLink Tax Tech and establish your password and things like that. So let's get right to it. Let's try logging in to the portal. I'm going to go to my internet browser here. And here we are on crosslinktaxtech.com. Once you're on this main page, what you want to do is click on the login button on the top right here. And that's going to take you to this login page where you enter in your user ID and password. Now, if this is your first time logging in, if you've never logged in before, let's say, you just have your account code, but you've never set the password for this thing, in that case, you want to click on Register Your Account down below. If you click on this option, it's going to ask you what your account code or user ID is. So here you would type your account code, again, usually a combination of your last name and first name, and maybe sometimes some numbers at the end. And then click on Register My Account. Once you click on this button, an email will be sent to you to the email address that we have on file. That basically includes a link to establish the password. You click on that link, it takes you right to the portal, asking you to enter in whatever password you want to use for your account code. So in my case, I've already established my username and password here. And then, the first time you log in, the very first time you log into this website, you'll see a QR code appear on screen. That QR code is specifically used when you are having an authentication app on your phone, such as Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, ID.me. There's a whole bunch of different apps that allow you to scan these QR codes, these like security QR codes. And what it does is it has a verification code on that app that you can use Once you scan the QR code, you'll be able to use that code that's on the app to enter it here, right? Now that is, I would say, optional in a sense. If you see that QR code, if you don't have that authentication app, no big deal. You can continue. There's a button to continue to log in. And instead of using this app to get the verification code, you can get that verification code via email. As I'm sure many of you have experienced with other, with other companies where you have to log in, they send you a verification code, a 6 or special code to your email, and then you type it in to continue. Now, in my case, I'm using a little bit something special. I scanned my QR code with a authentication, what do you call it, extension. This is an extension that you can install on a browser, kind of like almost like a little mini app for your browser. I'm using this one called Authenticator, and I scan that in. So now I have all these codes that I can just grab from my browser. And with a click, copy, and paste, let me try it again. There we go. And now I'm in. So just some different options for entering in that verification code. You can, when you first log in, you can scan that QR code with an authentication app, with an authentication extension on your browser if you want. Or if, I have these tools because I'm constantly logging in and out of this website. As a plan B, there's always receiving the code via email as well. So whatever works best for you. But here I am. Now I'm logged in to this online portal. So let's review some of these things that you typically have to do to get ready for the new season. And the first thing we typically do when we're logged in for the first time is go up to your accounts here, this Your Account tab towards the top, and then Agreements. These are these required agreements I was talking about. And these agreements, they are required in order to download the software and effectively use the program. We do need to go through these and complete them, especially the ones that you see here with a little red asterisk. Those are required fields that require completion. So to fix these, I'm going to click on this first one, Payout Election. And what I'm looking at now is this agreement that has to do with payouts. This is related to add-on fees, essentially. If you plan on using add-on fees, additional fees that'll be mixed in to the cost of a return, usually associated with bank product funded returns. When we're talking about bank products, these add-on fees are mostly associated with those types of returns, but there are some exceptions. Non-bank product returns can have add-on fees as well. We'll get into that in detail here in a bit. But this first one is all about where you are receiving these payments. If you choose to use add-on fees to accumulate extra revenue, then in that case, we have to know where to send this money, where to send the money that you're accumulating throughout the season. This money, you receive this back twice throughout the season, one at the end of July and the other at the end of November. And you have two options as to how you want to receive this money. You could receive these payments via 2 checks that we mail to you. That's the paper check option. Or direct deposit. If you prefer to receive this money direct deposited to your bank account, you could select this option. We still need to gather where we're going to send this money, just in case a direct deposit error occurs. You have to know, where to send it. But down below, you could enter your financial information, starting with the name of the bank, the type of account you're using, whether it's checkings or savings, the name on the deposit account. So this is either, your name or the name of your business, if this is a business bank account, the routing number, and the account number twice. Okay? So once you fill that information out, I'm going to choose paper check for my option. At the very bottom, we have an I agree checkbox that we need to complete. Of course, you can review this agreement in detail when you're looking at your agreements page. But in essence, that's what this page is talking about. And I'll save and continue to move on to the next agreement, the next required agreement that we have to complete. So this one here, the e-file fee agreement, this is one of those add-on fees that I was talking about before. This is one of the add-on fees that you could potentially use with the software. And if we scroll down a little bit, we can see what the minimum and the maximum amount that you can charge for this add-on fee, called the e-file fee. depending on how much you set. And by the way, right now we're just in this agreements page, we're just kind of looking at the terms and conditions of this agreement, kind of like the small print. Later on, during the bank enrollment or during the EFIN validation process, those are found under this Office Management tab. That's when you'll actually set these fees. So if you want to use them, that's when you'll enter in the price that you really want to use. Right now, we're just kind of reviewing, again, the terms and conditions. And later on, during that bank enrollment process, you can determine, first of all, what the price is going to be if you want to use it, or if you want to use it at all. You can say that, you know what, I don't want to use this one and set it at 0. But we still have to complete the agreement, kind of acknowledging the way it works, acknowledging the administrative fee, this admin fee. That's something important to keep in mind when it comes to these add-on fees. And that is, depending on how much you charge, there'll be an admin fee associated with that. Basically, a fee to use the fee. So if, for example, let's say you wanted to charge $30 as your e-file fee. In that case, that $30 would generate a $6 admin fee. And then the taxpayer, if this is a bank product funded return, the taxpayer would pay 36 total, 30 going to you, the office, and 6 going to CrossLink Tax Tech, essentially. Okay? So just be aware of that. Whatever you charge, there's, especially when you use these add-on fees, there's an admin fee associated with that, a fee that'll be added on to what you're charged. We're not deducting from what you're charging. We're adding on to what your fee is, what your add-on fee is. And then typically this is all paid by the taxpayer through their refund if using a bank product funded return. All right. So that's the first add-on fee that we can use, this e-file fee. At the very top, there's an I agree checkbox, assuming that you're okay with everything. Kind of giving an explanation again as to how it works, how the admin fee works. And also keep in mind that, depending on some states, these states, there may be restrictions as far as providing bank products to your customers, regulations when it comes to bank products and tax return preparation. So it's always a good idea to keep, if you are in one of these states, to be aware of the rules regarding that. But for now, we're going to save and continue. And we have another add-on fee that we can use, another add-on fee agreement. This one called the technology or tech add-on fee. This one is a little bit interesting. Well, first of all, it's kind of small. It could only be between $2 and $11, so not much of an add-on fee that you can enter here. There's an admin fee as well. And what makes this one a little bit special, this tech add-on fee, is that it applies to all returns, not just bank product funded returns, but any return, whether it's a regular e-file to the IRS where the customer's paying you directly, this add-on fee would still apply. It would always appear. And keep in mind, though, that when it comes to add-on fees, they generate an admin fee, right? And these admin fees are typically paid by the taxpayer when it's a bank product funded return. But when it's not a bank product funded return, when it's a regular e-filed return, let's say, then any of these admin fees that may be generated would be paid by the ERO, by what we call like the wallet, essentially the place, the card that's being used to pay for these CrossLink Tax Tech related fees. Okay. So I just want to make that distinction. If you, when it comes to this particular fee, this tech add-on fee, this one applies to all returns. And when you have that type of situation, when you have an add-on fee that applies to all returns, if it's a non-bank product funded return, the office would wind up paying the admin fee, any admin fees that are charged associated with that add-on. Okay? The e-file fee, the one that we saw before, that one can either be applied to bank products only or all returns. We're going to see how that process works once we get to the bank enrollment process. That's where we can manipulate these fees. So we'll review that again in detail. But for now, just a heads up, this tech add-on fee, we still have to agree to the terms and conditions, even though you may not wind up using it. But just something to keep in mind about this specific one, this technology or tech add-on fee. It applies to all returns. And then this one here, this is the next agreement that we have, the transmission or transmitter add-on fee. This one is bank products only. This one only applies for bank products. This one is fairly popular because it goes all the way up to 150 as a max add-on amount that you can set. And it can, depending on what amount you set, there's an admin fee that's going to be added on top. And since this one applies to just bank product returns only, you don't necessarily have to worry about paying the admin fee, right? It's going to be bank products only. Then in that case, it's always paid by the taxpayer, by their refund. It's deducted from the refund, along with, all the other fees associated with bank products. So that's the transmission or transmitter add-on fee. I clicked on accept and save and continue. This here is a little bit different from what we've seen so far. This has to do with the remote signature and acknowledging that there's a $5 fee if the taxpayer, if the taxpayer winds up signing their tax return remotely. Okay, so if that signature is completed remotely through that process in the software where you're doing a remote signature request, there's a $5 fee associated with that. And there's also an add-on fee that you can add on top if you wanted to. This one, I would say, it's somewhat rare to see this selected. Most people just set it to charge the $5 that's being charged the ERO. So like, if you are using remote sign, you can take that $5 fee that's being paid by the office, and there's an option to just charge the taxpayer and recover that money, right? You're adding extra $5 to the return so that you're recovering that money and then paying your $5 when you process this return. But in addition to that, you could also have an add-on fee on top of the $5, a max of 5 itself. So like as an example, if you were to use this add-on fee of 5, if you do a remote sign, you can charge the taxpayer $10 for this remote sign functionality, right? To capture that signature on their return, you can charge them 10 because you'll have this $5 add-on, but you'll still pay 5 when it comes to what you pay through the office wallet, what you have to pay for the service. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. If not, let me know, and during the Q&A process, we can review it. But again, even though you may not be using remote sign, we still have to agree to the terms and conditions. And just as a heads up, this $5 fee only applies when you are using remote sign. If you're capturing signatures electronically using your mouse, touchscreen, signature pad, those do not have an extra fee associated with it. Only remote sign when the taxpayer is signing remotely via email or via text. All right. So we're just still going through these agreements. Almost done. This is the last required agreement. This one can be a little bit confusing because we have these like 4 different options here. And what we're looking at basically is like audit protection services, additional services that you can add to your software. If you want the ability to offer this service to your customer, this audit protection service, this is where you can go to add that service to your program. Now, all of this is optional. And at first glance, you may think that you need to go in here and select yes or no for each one of these. But really, what you want to do is select one, like let's say this Audit Allies option, and make the determination as to whether or not you want to work with them, yes or no, and then that's it. You cannot enroll with more than one company, especially these first 3, Audit Allies, Protection Plus, Refundo Audit Protection. These are essentially the same service. They're all just audit protection provided by different people, by different companies. We have Audit Allies Company, Protection Plus Company, and Refundo specifically for Refundo bank customers. So if you're enrolling with Refundo, then you can, offer Refundo Audit Protect. Okay. These other 2, Audit Allies and Protection Plus, they're more general. Doesn't matter what bank you're enrolling with. You can choose to have this service or not. And by the way, when we're talking about this audit insurance, what does this mean exactly? We're talking about essentially a program or a service that your taxpayer can choose. They can elect if they want to have this included in their return. This is an additional cost. If a customer wants this audit protection, in that case, there's a charge of roughly $60 that'll be charged to the return. It'll be added on to the cost of the return. And then that form, that audit protection form, will be attached to the return, activating that audit protection for them. So if the taxpayer were to go through an audit with the IRS, then this company, whichever one you enroll with, if the customer purchased the audit protection, they'd be able to contact the company, and the company would provide help with going through that process with the IRS, going through that audit process. So your choice whether or not you want to have the ability. It's just the ability to offer this service. If I were to select yes here for Audit Allies, it doesn't mean that every return is automatically going to have audit protection. It just means that I have the ability to offer audit protection if the customer, if the taxpayer wants this, right? It's really the choice of the taxpayer whether or not they want this extra service included. So you can choose yes or no, depending on your preference. And then I'll say yes. That way I can have that ability. And then that's it. Save and continue. I don't have to go to each one of these and say yes or no. Just the one that I want or the one that I don't want to choose. It's basically choosing yes or no for one of these. And then you'll be able to save and continue. And then you'll be able to complete all of these agreements. All right. And these, again, are the required ones, the ones that we have to complete in order to use the software. So that's that. After that, we have these two over here, banking products enrollment. This we have to agree to if we plan on enrolling with the bank. If we plan on doing bank enrollment, we do want to select this one and save and continue. Okay. That allows you to complete and active and enroll with the bank. And then we also have this one here, Santa Barbara Tax Products Group. This one is specifically for Santa Barbara. If you plan on enrolling with Santa Barbara Bank to provide bank products, then we do have to agree to this agreement as well. Here, we're basically activating some additional services that Santa Barbara has for you to manage. They have their own add-on fees that you can use. And again, we'll take care of that when we do the bank enrollment process. And you could even agree to this, even like, let's say I could agree to this Santa Barbara enrollment, and I can enroll with another bank. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's just that to enroll with Santa Barbara, I do have to agree to this agreement here. Okay? So again, those are all the agreements that we typically have to complete here under your accounts agreements. That's a good place to start because that will unlock other things that you can do in the software or in the portal, on this website. So now with that done, let's take care of some other things. Let's take a look at my user IDs that I have for my software. That's found under support here, support, and then manage offices. Here are all my user IDs that I have associated with my program, along with my transmit password. And in the case of this other software here, I have another password specifically for that type of program. But in your case, especially if you're like a one EFIN type of office using the desktop program, you're mostly just going to have one user ID and one transmission password. And this information is going to be important when you want to install the program. Around the December timeframe, that's when the new software for the upcoming tax season will become available. And then if you were to install that program, the first thing the program wants to know is what's my user ID and what's my transmit password, or sometimes just known as password, the password that's entered next to the user ID. This is kind of like authentication information for the software. So if you get to that point when you're installing the program and it asks for your user ID and password, this is where you can go to find that. It's the same user ID and password year after year, so it doesn't change after every season. But if you need a reminder of what that is, you can, and one of the good things is you can copy and paste, when you're setting up the program, you can go here, copy, paste into the program setup, and be able to move on to the next step. All right. So that, again, is support and then manage offices. A good place to not only review your user IDs, there's some other options in here as well. With the desktop program, you do want to make sure that your licenses are available for use, whether you're a standard federal license, whether or not you have the business or corporate license. Those should be available. In my case, I have none here for this tax year 2024. So that leads me to believe that, my software, or perhaps I haven't paid for my program yet, I haven't paid for my license. Some of this may become activated later on in the season as well, the closer we get to tax season. But things to be aware of. And then another option, this state software option, not available just yet because the new program isn't available yet. But this allows you to add state packages to your software, like if you need to have certain state returns available in your program or preloaded into your program, you can come here and select them, and they'll be, as soon as you transmit with the software, the program will pick them up and they'll be available for use. That's mostly for desktop customers. If you're using online, the online tax preparation software, you don't necessarily have to worry about this page as much. This is mostly used for desktop customers. All right. So that's support, manage offices. Mostly informational for you, but some good information that you may use when you're setting up the software. All right. So next up, let's take a look at that bank enrollment and EFIN validation. That is handled through this Office Management tab, and there's two options here. Bank enrollment, EFIN validation, depending on whether or not you want to enroll with the bank, whether or not you want to provide bank products this upcoming season, you can choose which one you want to use. If you want to provide bank products, it's bank enrollment, and when you do bank enrollment, your EFIN will be validated automatically. So it's kind of like a 2-in-1 type situation. If you don't plan on providing bank products this upcoming season, and you just want to be able to e-file, then in that case, you want to go to EFIN validation. That will allow you to add your EFIN, but not go through the bank approval process. Thankfully, they're mostly the same. The process is very similar between the two. Let's take a look at bank enrollment, since that's the most, I would say, involved one. There's more pages and more sections that we have to complete when we're doing bank enrollment. So here, under this bank enrollment page, I've got my EFIN information and my user ID already in here. That's because this information was transferred from the prior year. You may see this as well. If your information was transferred over, you may have your EFIN in here already and your user ID. Perfect. And all you would need to do is click on the add link down here to select which bank you want to enroll with, or which are the first banks you want to enroll with. Because keep in mind, you can enroll with more than one bank. You can enroll with all four if you wanted to, and later on decide which one you actually want to use. That's kind of rare overall. It is you can do that, but if you already have a bank in mind, a bank that you've been using for a while, that you want to use, just click on the one. For this example, I'll choose Santa Barbara as an example. And then we'll get to that bank application form. These are all the pages that we need to complete in order to submit the enrollment to the bank, to Santa Barbara in this case. And I typically begin with this first page, this EFIN information page. I can click on Edit to start that process up. We have our user ID in here that is going to be associated with my EFIN. In most cases, if you're talking about the very first EFIN, your main EFIN, that would be master EFIN. If you deal with any like sub offices, then we also have a sub office, or excuse me, sub EFIN option. But if you're a single EFIN, it's going to be master. And then here, you'll see a whole bunch of information. This is supposed to match whatever the IRS has on file for the EFIN. This is the EFIN holder information, okay? So you want to fill this out with, trying to match whatever the IRS has on file for this EFIN as closely as possible. A lot of this is pretty straightforward, company name, first name, address, phone numbers, social security numbers of the EFIN holder, ID type. Some things that may be a little bit confusing at first glance is this IRS tracking number. First of all, this is optional, so you don't have to type it in if you don't want to. But if you're curious what this is and you want to fill it out, you can click on this "What is this?" button over to the right, and this is what we're talking about. It's like a specialized number that will be part of the e-file summary page, usually. You can find it towards the bottom. So if you want to enter that in, you can. And then another one that may cause confusion is this: what is your EFIN registered under? SSN or EIN? This has to do with when you applied for the EFIN, what was the primary number that was used during that EFIN application process? Did you use your EIN as the main number, or did you use your social? Normally, if you have an EIN and you've used your EIN during the EFIN process, the EFIN application process, then in that case, the EIN will be the primary number. But this is another one where you can confirm it with the IRS EFIN summary. The number that appears as the primary number towards the top. If you see your social in there, well, in that case, that's the social. If you see your EIN, it's the EIN. All right. So once you fill out this first page, I typically recommend selecting this little box down here that says copy to save business contacts. What this does is that it saves the information that you have here, all this info, so that you can use it later on in these other pages that appear in the bank enrollment process. It just makes filling out information faster. If you have autofill through your Chrome browser or through your browser, it's similar to that in a sense, but it'll save information so that you can pull it in or select it when filling out all these other pages. All right. But for now, I'll move on to the next page, financial information. So this, again, is your bank. This is where any fees any fees associated with your bank products, with these bank product funded returns, will be deposited. And here I'm talking about your tax preparation fees, where you're charging for tax prep. They'll be deposited here to this bank account. Your add-on fees, remember those add-on fees we were talking about before? That bank account is part of the agreements. Okay, so just keep that in mind. There's two bank accounts. They could be the same one. You can use the same bank account for both things, but this one, as part of their bank enrollment, that's your tax preparation fees. The one that's part of the agreements that we saw before, that's for your add-on fees. All right, they can be separate or different. And oh, by the way, going back to this office information. Here, we're just going to start asking for some real general information. The office, what type of business it is, phone number, the person in charge of the office. If this stuff matches the first page, you can use this use business contact info and select, right now it's blank, I'm sorry, I don't have anything. But if I had saved that business contact on the first page by selecting that checkbox, I would have a record here that I can select, and it would import all that information from the first page that we saw. So that's why I recommend on this first page selecting this checkbox so that you can use this business contact button. And then later on here on these other pages.
So we were going through this information, using this use business contact info to import some information and fill this out. And we're essentially filling this out. A lot of this is going to be pretty basic. Shipping address here, this is the address that's going to be used to send any material associated with the bank products. We're talking about like your check stock, flyers, marketing materials from the bank. This can be different from your tax office address if you want, wherever you think would be best, but it could be the tax office as well. Physical address, the actual physical address of the tax office. And you'll notice that, you have these copy to save business contacts check boxes here as well. You don't necessarily have to select this unless you want to save new information. If you're just pulling in the address from that first page, you don't have to resave it and create another record, another business contact. You would only select this if you want to save new information, okay? Owner's information, the owner of the tax business. Lots of the times you can pull the information from that first page using this business contact. A lot of this is just going to be the same from the first, but if it's different, feel free to modify it if need be. Prior year stats, it's asking about the history of the EFIN, whether or not this EFIN was associated with a bank this last tax season or tax year 23, right? Because right now, we're doing enrollment for the upcoming season, tax year 24. So prior year would be tax year 23. If you were using this EFIN with any of the prior banks, you can select which one and also enter in some information about that, how many bank products were submitted last season and how many were funded. And if you were not using a bank product last season, or excuse me, if you're not enrolled with the bank last tax season, you can choose none here, and then that's it. It'll autofill 0 and 0, and you can click Save to continue. Simple as that. And now we get to the fee information page. This is the page where we start modifying all those fees that we were talking about before during the agreements process. Here are all the different add-on fees that you can use. And depending on which bank you're using, some banks have this extra one called the doc prep fee. Other banks may call it an electronic filing fee. Some banks may not even have this extra one. But the first three that we see, these ones are managed by CrossLink TaxTech. These are the fees that we provide or give to you twice throughout the season. Those add-on fees that are either direct deposited or mailed via check. This last one, if it's available, this one is managed by the bank, in this case, Santa Barbara. And the way these add-on fees work, this doc prep fee, is that it would be deposited to your bank account, similar to your tax preparation fees, and it'll be deposited more frequently. As soon as the refund is dispersed, it'll be deposited to your bank account, very similar to the way your tax preparation fees are handled when it comes to these bank product funded returns. Okay. So the first three add-on fees, you get those in the form of the 2 checks throughout the season. The last one, doc prep fee, if it's available, you'll get that deposited as soon as the refund is dispersed. But these add-on fees, they essentially work the same way. If you enter an amount, it'll appear in the return automatically. And it depends on how you want these fees to appear in the return. As an example, if I enter in $20 here, this $20 will transfer into the return. It will appear as an e-file fee of $20, but we know that that e-file fee, that's essentially just money that you're recovering, money that you're accumulating. It's called the e-file fee, but it's essentially your fee. Same thing with this trans add-on fee, this transmitter add-on fee. If I were to enter $100 here, this one is a little bit interesting because this add-on fee, it mixes in with our add-on fee. Normally our add-on fee, or excuse me, our transmitter fee is $25.95. That's the fee that we charge when it's a bank product funded return. But if I were to enter $100 here, that would move over, it would mix in with our transmitter fee of $25.95. So it would appear as $125.95 to simplify the example, okay? If I really wanted to get technical, it would be $100 plus $25.95 plus the admin fee. Remember that admin fee we were talking about before? That is also mixed in with what is being charged to the return. So it'll be the combination of those three things that appear on that line. Here's that tech add-on fee. This is the one that applies to all returns, not just bank product returns. So you may want to be careful with this one. If you want to use it, feel free, of course. If all of your customers are bank product funded customers, then there really isn't a risk of paying for any admin fees yourself. So you're welcome to use it. But if you're trying to minimize how much you plan on paying when it comes to the wallet, how much you have to pay with your card, and if you provide like non-bank product funded returns, then you may not want to use this one. Same thing with this apply electronic filing fee to all returns. This checkbox, if I select this, it would apply the e-file fee to all returns, not just bank product funded returns. So same deal applies. When it's a bank product funded return, the taxpayer would pay all these fees through the refund. If it's a non-bank product funded return, then in that case, let me enter in something here. Let me enter in $10. Then in that case, the $20 e-file fee, that's generating a $5 admin fee. The $10 tech fee, that's generating a $3 fee. And these two, the 11 and the 3, they would be paid through the wallet along with this $4 technology fee. It basically works exactly as the $4 technology fee. I'm sure some of you may be aware of this already. When it comes to this $4 tech fee, if it's a bank product funded return, the taxpayer pays for it. If it's a non-bank product funded return, the office pays for it. Same thing with the admin fees. For the e-file, if you select this box, if you don't have it selected, it's bank products only. And then this tech add-on fee. This one is always all returns by default, okay? And then this doc prep fee, this one is bank products only. This is, you can enter in an amount here as well if you wanted to, a max of 160, as we can see here. And again, this one varies by bank, so just keep that in mind. Some banks allow more, some banks allow less. Other banks, I believe, don't even allow an additional add-on fee at all. You can focus on the first threes. And keep in mind that all of this is optional. You can choose 0 for all these add-on fees, and rely purely on your tax preparation fees for revenue. I would say that's kind of rare. Most people prefer to generate a little bit of money throughout the season using these add-on fees. And depending on how many bank products you offer, how much your add-on fees can be, it can be quite substantial. You know, that first check in July, 5-figure check, depending on how many returns you process. And this little calculator here can kind of give you an estimate of what that would look like, you know, depending on whether or not you process 100 returns. Like, here's an example, right, of how much that first check can be. All right. So after that, some other questions that we have to complete. Just to wrap this one up, we have, in the case of Santa Barbara, they allow you to receive materials in both English and Spanish if you wanted to by selecting yes, this is marketing materials, or no. It could also, this is another area where it may vary by bank. Some other banks, like for example, Refund Advantage, they tend to offer advances for first-year EFINs. If you wanted to make sure to like offer an advance and you're new to providing bank products, Refund Advantage may have some questions down here, whether you want to offer an advance, yes or no. So every bank has its own specific forms that need completion. A lot of them are, you know, like 90% of the forms are basically the same type of information, just some minor differences here and there. In the case of Santa Barbara, they also allow you to offer this check fee opt-in. This is basically like an extra fee that can be added to the cost of the return if the taxpayer wants to print the check at your office. If they want a printed check for the bank product, if I have yes here, it would charge an extra $12 fee would automatically appear in the return if I have yes here and the taxpayer wants to print the check. If they do direct deposit, this $12 fee will not apply. So it's supposed to serve as an incentivizer for your customers to use direct deposit versus printed checks, you know, saving you some hassle, the time and the effort of printing checks. So it's literally a check print fee. Now, this is purely optional. If I were to select no here, I can still print checks for my customers. It's just that that extra $12 fee would not apply. And by the way, when it comes to that $12 fee, of those $12, you gain 4. So it's also like an additional revenue source. If I select no here, then, you know, obviously I'm not accumulating that extra $4 because it's not charging extra to the customer. And then the last page, terms and conditions. Very straightforward, just some terms and conditions that we have to complete. In my case, in the case of Santa Barbara, 4 check boxes that we have to select. This can vary again, how many check boxes we have to complete, depending on the bank. But once you save here, that will complete all the pages of the bank enrollment. Once you complete all these pages, you'll see a green check mark appear, kind of similar to what we saw with the agreements, you see. Once you complete all these pages for bank enrollment, a green check mark will appear next to it, and then you'll have a submit bank application button towards the bottom. Once you click on that button, that's when the application will be sent off to the bank. And in most cases, you'll receive news very quickly as to whether or not you're approved for the upcoming season. And then, you know, take action with the bank after that. And then once you submit, I should mention, like, if you submit and get an approval for your enrollment, keep in mind that you could always come back in here into this enrollment and modify this information if you have to. If you need to change the fees, if something changes as far as the office info, the bank account information, you can always come back in here and update the information. Just want to make sure to resubmit the info so that the bank can get that updated information. All right. And when it comes to the fees, once you e-file the first return for the year, that's when these fees kind of get locked in. So keep that in mind as well. We have until January, basically, to modify these fees however you like. Once the first return is e-filed, that's when things become a bit more difficult to modify these fees after the fact. But until then, feel free. Okay, so that was bank enrollment. Once you enroll with the bank, you'll see it here. There'll be a status that appears whether or not you're approved, rejected, if by chance that's the case. In most cases, you'll be accepted without any issues. So that's bank enrollment. EFIN validation, real quick, just in case you don't plan on providing bank products and you want to validate your EFIN so that you can e-file returns through the software through this upcoming season, you would come in here, click on edit, and then notice very similar information to that first page that we saw of the bank enrollment, the EFIN holder info. It just wants to know your user ID, your EFIN, your EFIN holder information down below. And then here, this option is whether or not you want these add-on fees included with these non-bank product funded returns. Notice that we only have two add-on fees, the e-file fee and the tech. Those are the two that apply or that can apply to non-bank product funded returns. So those are the two that you see here. But keep in mind that admin fee cost still applies. So if you use these and you're processing these non-bank product returns, the office would pay for any admin fees that may apply. Okay. So in that case, I would say it's more common to not see the use of add-on fees when you're not providing bank products, just to minimize the amount of add-on admin fees you have to pay. But of course, this is your choice. If you would like to use these add-on fees, feel free. And we also have a checkbox here confirming that you're only electronically filing returns, not providing bank products. Click on save, and there you go. That's the only page we have to complete for EFIN validation. Okay. All right, so I think we've covered all the important areas when it comes to using this portal. You know, one thing as part of the agreements, we mentioned that you can have an add-on fee for a remote sign. I would say, again, this is somewhat rarely used, but if you did want to increase the amount of money that you're charging your customers for remote sign, you can do that under this support tab as well. Support and manage remote SIG markup. By default, you could always, you know, even if you don't come in here, you could always charge the $5 to the customers. There's an option in the return to quickly charge that $5 to your taxpayer and recover that money. So this is if you want to charge more than the $5 that you're paying, right? So if I come in here and say, okay, this user ID, I want to mark it up 5. I'm selecting the checkbox next to my user ID and then update selected user. Notice that now the user ID has this remote signature markup of 5. Now, when I go into my returns and I say that this customer is going to pay for the remote sign, they'll be charged 10 versus 5. Okay, so that's what this is all about, just to add additional money. But again, optional. You don't necessarily have to do this if you don't want to charge this extra money. And you always have the ability, whether or not you come here or not, you always have the ability to at least charge 5 to recover that money from your taxpayer. All right. So with that said, let's go back into this PowerPoint here. I just want to wrap up with a few things to expect next after dealing with this portal. Once you complete those steps, that's really everything, at least up to this point, that you would want to do on the portal. We're still relatively early on for the new season, but the closer we get to season, the more things you would need to take care of to make sure that you're up to date. One of the first things, after enrolling with the bank, you'll receive an update via email from the bank, and you want to make sure to follow the instructions on that email to complete the enrollment. In the case of Santa Barbara, as an example, once you enroll with the bank, you typically get an email very quickly, in less than 5 minutes, notifying that you're approved. If you're approved, there's a link to go to their website, to Santa Barbara's website, and complete some things on their side. Depending on the bank, it may take longer or more to receive that initial email, that approval email. But either way, when you do get that email, follow the instructions. You typically have to log into the bank's portal and finalize a few things on their end. Okay. And then if you're enrolling with multiple banks, if you want to get approval from multiple banks, you can do that, but you'll need to return at some point, especially towards the December timeframe. to select which bank you actually want to use. You'll be approved, let's say with all 4 banks, and then under that Office Management tab, right below bank enrollment, you'll see a bank selection option. Right now, we didn't see that on the portal because it's just too early. It's too early in the season to be selecting which bank you want to use for the new season. But later on, especially during December, you'll see when the new program's out, you'll definitely see that bank selection option. And again, this is really more important when you enroll with more than one bank. Typically, when you just enroll with the one bank, it'll automatically configure itself to use that bank. But if you're enrolling with more than one, that's when you have to manually select which one you want to use. And then as talking about the new program, it typically comes out the first week of December is when the new software for tax year 2024 becomes available. And you'll be notified via email. As soon as it's available, you'll receive a link to get that software, okay? And then finally, other things to keep in mind, webinars such as this one right here. We have a whole bunch of topics coming up, which I think, Justin, if you'd like to provide more information about, we can definitely do that now.
Yeah, thank you, Gil, very much for that wonderful presentation. And real quick, before we get into that, just a reminder, if any of you have any questions that came up during the presentation, on the GoToWebinar panel, there should be a questions tab that you can expand. And right now would be a great time to enter any of those that you have, and we're going to do our best to answer as many of them as possible. But and while everyone is doing that, yes, so definitely I encourage everybody to head on over to the CrossLink Tax Tech website, and there at the top you'll see a webinars link, and if you click that, that will take you to our webinars page that has all of the upcoming webinars for this season listed on there. Of course, you see at the top we had today's, but then a ton of other really good, a lot of great content here. Everything from walking through a return in both the desktop software, the online software. Great topics like how to maximize your earning potential, or utilizing our new digital marketing kit that's coming out in a couple weeks. What's going to be new in the software, improved efficiencies, create improved results. So utilizing some of our features to help you run a more efficient tax business. A lot of great stuff here. So definitely head on over to the website and register for those webinars.